Hello, Chanley back here with you. Welcome to my channel again for another video. This is going to be the part 2 of my journey to Peru, the adventure that took me on a quest to cleanse my sexual energy and return into a wholeness state of being and understand how self-love and self-acceptance is really the only thing that you could ever seek in this life, which is worth obtaining. To be in love with yourself and to be in full acceptance of yourself is the greatest gift you could ever give to the self. I cut off my second ceremony a little bit early. I'm going to go ahead and kind of finish the last part of that. So there was, as the ceremony engaged and went on and did its beautiful unfolding thing, I found myself a little bit like out of sorts and whatnot, and so I kind of crawled over to the shamans and was like, just wanted to like lay there next to them and be in their presence, kind of thing. It's like bueno, bueno, and I'm like, si, bueno, bueno, we're all good here. I just want to be by you, that kind of thing. And so then I think it was Sally or Cece, one of them came over, one of the facilitators came over and kind of like guided me back to my bed, and it was Cece because I remember her saying like, don't worry, Chan, like, we're going to wrap this up. Just give us, like, 15 more minutes. I'm like, okay, cool. I can do 15 minutes, like quarter of an hour. That's nothing, Shoot. It takes me 15 minutes to eat a sandwich sometimes. Like, this ain't nothing. Little did I know, this was going to be everything. Because it was so intense. This 15 minutes was, like, more information than I have experienced in my 21 years at that time. Times a billion. Like, I mean, it was just literally like, I would say more information than humans have ever consciously been aware of in the whole expression, at least what they tell us. Now, I don't know, we might have been here much longer, but like, at least for these last, like, however long period of time, like, it was like experiencing every single human being's personal biography, all at once. It was like data sheets of a computer just flooding through my pineal gland. And then after we went through every single human being, then we went through every single species and every single type of creature into the very specifications, even the things in which they have not evolved into and the things in which they've evolved from, seeing all of their biographies and general information and consciousness, like creative experience patterns, which led them through the tunnels which birthed forth the creatures in which then I get to experience here in the now. The same as a chant. Then we went into the minerals and the rocks and all the foliage and plants and flowers and all of their biographies and creational patterns from source into this manifested glorial form in front of me. And really the big thing I was trying to get across was my uncanny ability to overload people with information with quite amount of excitement. They just sort of blast their brains out to the wall behind them, and they really have no choice to sit there, yeah, when they're not taking in any of the information because it's not provided in a way which is entertaining and usable and authentic, right? Like we talked about that in the previous video about being more of a regurgitator of information. Woo! Regurgitator of information rather than an actual divine creator of that information. And it's not bad to take information from other people, but it's a matter of like consuming that information, giving it time to distill and envelop and work through your being, and then bringing forth or budding that information out through your heart space, so that way it's something that you truly believe and are committed in that moment, rather than like, hey, this information sounds kind of cool, let me spit it at you, like listen, whatever. I think of it like rap. Like there's a lot of rappers who like, they're just like, talking about like really, silly things, that I bet like in their pure soul, like is not really something that they're that passionate about or that excited about, versus like someone like Patrick Hayes. Check that out, Patrick, and then Haize, music, fantastic artist who raps and speaks like that pure soul goodness, something that he can believe in and that people could believe in, whether they were born 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years from now, and that's the kind of messages that I want to try to bring forth in my being as someone's here who finds speaking to be a very fluid, free form of art for me to express myself. So continuing on, that rabbit hole of just infinite information, after we got through, the planets and the things that I had any sort of reference to, Then the medicine really got a good kick out of like, oh yeah, and let's check out these alien civilizations and all their creatures, fungi and foliage, and then let's go into even deeper into like the networks of like technology and like the personalities of like coding and how like they have their own communicational information and you know, creative expressions, and it's not just like these simple like number patterns. Like there's a reason and a sequence behind like everything that happens, and like just like getting overwhelmed with all of this information. I'm just like, oh my god, like I just remember I kept tapping my pineal, and every time I did it was just like spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet. I'm like, how is this 15 minutes? Like this won't stop. And then it finally like CC did light the candle and it was over, and I was like, thank God. Like I was so happy, because like the first part of my ceremony was like, oh my God, like I've reached enlightenment. Like I'm the absolute wholeness of creation, baby. And like get to like experience the most transcendental unifying pleasure and sexual expression of human of human potential within my being. Oh my God. And then the second half was like feeling lost and dealing with like this abandonment inside me and like loneliness, which is like one of my biggest fears, is like not to have people to express to. And so like I was just going through this like heavy of like being alone and like there's nobody there for me. And then like once I kind of like got comforted by Sally and the shamans, and then guided back by Cece and told the rest there, then it was just like, let me just throw all this karma on you, bro. You're gonna do with that shit now, and like recognize how you make people's brains feel sometimes. And I'm just like, damn, man. Like so I almost didn't talk about like a lot of that, like whenever I actually went and had conversation with all my buddies like after the ceremony. I was just like so excited about talking about all the first half of that stuff, just like this crazy enlightenment. And then like slowly people started going to bed, and as they went to bed, like this loneliness crept more and more inside me until it was just me and Oliver there. And I'm like, finally all this other stuff started coming out. And it was really difficult. And I remember he was about to go to bed. I'm like, Oliver, don't go to bed. Like, I need somebody to go to bed, like to lay with me. And he's like, then go with your body. And I was like, oh my God, like that still sticks with me. He's like, you're never alone, man. Your spirit's always got your body, and your body's always got your spirit. As long as there's breath, as long as you're living, as long as there's consciousness animating the vessel in which you is, like you're never alone, because this very creation, the very essence, the very soul of creation itself is expressing itself through you as you. So it's like, wow, like that was something. I didn't quite get that all in the moment. I remember like I like this, oh yeah, you're right. And then I went to bed and I just like laid there for like hours, like not being able to sleep, just feeling so alone and shit. And the next morning I woke up, I was very like disoriented and sort of like didn't really feel physical. I was kind of like edgy too, like someone said something and I just like blah, 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 just like went on a tangent. Didn't really have a purpose for saying what I said. It just sort of came out, and like they just kind of looked back at me. Like it wasn't like I was being like rude. It just wasn't really like at all to do with what we were just talking about. And it was just this gloop of words comprised. And then Sally's like, are you feeling okay? And I'm like, I don't really feel physical. That's right, not good. Like I'm not sure if I'm a body or not right now. And she's like, all right. She got like the shaman, and he like did this like work to like kind of massage my stomach, and then like this different like breath, like pulling things out of me and blowing things. I need to learn more about the beautiful artwork, or the art and giftings and craft. It's a true craft, like a medicine craft, that shamanism really is, to like understand exactly what's going on in that realm. But all I know is through his energy engaging with mine in different ways of massaging my body and working with my energetical field, he was able to alleviate a lot of like worry and like stress about and like just simplify my being and like engage me with my body. And then after he told me to go take a shower, and it was literally like steam was just pouring off of me as I'm in the shower, just like, oh. And then after that shower I felt fantastic. Like I was just like I'm refreshed. We went on like a couple nature excursions, one shortly after that, another one at night, where I got to like see the jungle and see creatures, and like that's like my home, because I grew up like exploring the woods and just being free. And so like it was like, wow, like this is me as a kid again, and like that innocence that I had tapped into at the beginning of my second ceremony was then returning to me. And I'm like, wow, like this is something special. And then just a little side note, one thing I did forget to throw in there, when during our 10 a.m. meeting, which we always have after like the ceremony, I remember I was like going on once again, it was another one of these kind of like tangents. So like I wasn't like completely like grounded, you could say. It was like he just kind of like helped me feel as though I was a body, you know, and then like helped me be able to experience things more referentially from me. Um, but so I still wasn't very grounded, especially with like my more spiritual thoughts and expressions. I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes to be grounded with that, but it's like that's the practice, you know. We get to practice like engaging and trickling that down and developing that in our body and all that beautifulness, right? But I just remember like this thing that distinctly stuck with me, which was my facilitator Cece said to me after I went on some spiritual tangent about love and connection and whatever. Like she's just like, you know, like what you said there's a lot of spiritual knowledge drenched in it. And, you know, you have more spiritual knowledge than some people gather in even a lifetime. But there was no feeling. There was no heart behind what it was that you were saying there to me. There was no like, you know, authenticity of that expression. And like her just saying that completely set me back. And I'm just like, damn. Like, is that how I express like all the time? Like, do I do that a lot? Like, am I oftentimes not connected with my heart whenever I'm just pouring off this information? Do I really just channel this higher knowledge and just butt it forth? Is there no integration? Is there no trickle down? Not to say I absolutely had none of that. Obviously, you're not able to communicate it if there isn't some layer of it. But I just wasn't really fully allowing this energy to distill and to become a part of me. And like it threw me back. And that man I was talking about, Duncan, from the previous video, who's this divine masculine reflection, I was sitting right next to me, and he like I was kind of like sitting there like on my head, like kind of like crying, and he just put his hand on my shoulder. And then like that's when I told him like, bro, like, you know, you were like, you know, you remind me of my dad, bro. You mind if I give you a big hug? He's like, come on in. And so he gave me this hug, and he's just like holding me like his little kid, and I'm just bawling my eyes out on his chest. And like it was like so beautiful. Like I was talking, one of my most cherished moments in my whole entire life, honestly. Like that was like that moment right there. Duncan, if you're watching this, that is why like I love you in the way that I do. Obviously we have like a tons of other experiences, but that moment, like you, like that, it lives inside of me as like a divine reflection of masculine nurturing, like his son, you know, like God the Father and God the Son, like engaged and like unified, like it lives inside of me, like it's just etched in there. And I truly love you, Duncan. I really do. And honestly, everybody that I was able to meet on this experience, I hold deep reverence and love for each and every one of you. Like you guys were all, you know, beautiful reflections of like the divinity which was expressing through me at that time. You know, you all have your own individual paths, but I can only experience you through me. And so what I was able to experience of you was beautiful and exactly what I needed, you know, to have it or to engage with at that time. And if you want more information on that as a viewer, you can always go back to my like original video where it's like I kind of like unload my gratitude and everything to each one of these beautiful, precious beings in which I was, blessed with engaging with. But that's that's a whole nother 20-minute video. We don't need to like trickle that out in this one right here. We got another video for that. So yeah, I was crying and whatnot, and then like after that little meeting or whatever, like group chat share time, like that's whenever we went on these nature excursions, and it was like, oh my God, like I'm loved, and like everything is okay, like, you know, like this is beautiful, and like I'm just a kid exploring the woods again. I just felt so free. And I came back and I just started journaling like multiple pages just about like what love is and the nature of love and how it doesn't have to be earned, and how there's nothing we could ever do to obtain love, and how love is everly abundant and available, and that no matter what we do to distort our understanding of the divine reflection which is always present in front of us, like it is still there. It is still there as crystal clear as it has ever been in each and every moment, and that God has a purpose and a plan for each experience that we go through, and it's orchestrating us into the purpose that he put us on this planet for. And we must go through these experiences to broaden our awareness, to make us perceptually aware of both light and dark, and so that we can consciously make the choice to sit between, to not say light is good and dark is bad, but to say light is what gives dark its meaning, and dark is what reflects the light, its truth. And so we can sit within that peace, which is centered and balanced, and the both point is what I like to call it, because both is like my favorite word. Like, does it get much better than both? I mean, like, You can have both of it, you know, both it up. I think the only both I don't agree with in my own personal thing is like boys and girls. Like I like girls, I'm sorry, but it's like some people though, some people can be both there too. I have no attraction. I mean, like I can appreciate art, you know, like Zac Efron, Tom Brady, glorious, beautiful reflections, you know, like damn, like you're doing it, bro. Like you're gorgeous, but it's like I don't want to engage with that. There ain't nothing there that's appealing to me in that way, you know. So like, I'm not quite both there, but you know, there are few of, or some of us that are. So it still resonates on some plane. So anyways, the third ceremony, it was after a couple of days. We had this break. We had like this Cambo, which is this frog medicine. Like started off, it was like 7 a.m. We drank like a liter of water, put the medicine on, just started vomiting. Like there's a video on my channel of the Cambo ceremony. Me and Rob both just like there, just letting our guts out and, you know, restarting the system, getting all those peptides and whatnot. And so like, you know, I felt very, very clear and excited about going into my next ceremony, you know. And I remember like I was getting ready for that journey and I was sort of just listening to some like worship music and some super powerful like gratitude music and whatnot. And I was just crying. I was just like in my bed, just shaking. And James comes in, he's like, "You okay, bro?" I never forget it. He's in his fucking polka dotted red underwear. I think they might have had something on it, but they just look like polka dotted red underwear to me. Nothing else. Just, "You okay, bro? You good? You good?" And he just gave him, "Oh, I could use a hug." And he just gives me a hug. And it was just like, I didn't give a fuck that he was only in his underwear. Like, it was just like the love, because it was just amazing. And so like after that, like I kind of got out and back, started talking with people, and most people were just sort of laying around and chilling and getting ready for that next ceremony. This ceremony was where I kind of came into peace. I didn't know that until like basically the end of the ceremony, because I wasn't very comfortable with the sensational experience of peace. To me, it was very similar to sadness, and so I just thought I was like fucking sad the whole time. I'm just like, I just got no energy, everything, like, there's no meaning, man, like, I'm just, like, in this state, like, it was hilarious, because I didn't recognize it until the end. I was like, wow, like, that's what peace feels like, where you don't got to worry about shit, there ain't nothing on your mind, like, you don't got to go, like, be nothing, or, like, have energy to do anything. You can just, like, soak in, like, this gloriousness of where you are, right? And so that was sort of the big message of that ceremony. And there was one cool part, because it wasn't a very visual or sensational experience in comparison to the other ones. It was like by far my quote, like least intense, if you will. But I remember it was so powerful because it allowed me to do a lot of the work, you know, as a conscious Chan. Like there was a whole pile when I started next to me of like things that people I had never forgiven, or like myself at times where I had misspoken, or like not, you know, been able to align with my highest truth in that moment. And so like I was like mad at myself in some way, or like just basically a big pile of forgiveness was the general theme. And one by one, they all tried to crowd in. I'm like, no, give this one time. And so like I just sat with that aspect, that being, that part of myself, or that person which I was still holding resentment from. And I just sat there until it like basically dissipated or integrated into my being, depending on which frequency it was. Some of them, like, they wanted to live inside me and find little spots in my bicep, and other ones wanted to go float away into the cosmos and go, you know, help somebody else with their journey. So it just kind of depended on the particular frequency tone, which was resonant in that little encapsulated moment of time, which I was holding on to. And so I, you know, one by one went through this big pile, and this is why, like, I didn't really recognize the piece, because it was all like, oh, I got to forgive this person, like, you know, it was like things that, like, more heavier emotions. So I was just assuming, like, wow, like this, like, I'm just been sad like this whole time. And then at the very end, it just clicked, and I'm like, wow, this is what peace feels like to be in forgiveness for people, to hold the world with a compassionate heart. Like, that's what peace is, man. And I'm like, dang, like, that is beautiful, and I am eternally grateful for that night, even though it was, quote, my least experiential intense. It was so calming, and exactly what I needed after that, like, bizarre, like, explosion of the previous night. Let's see, the fourth ceremony, and I'm kind of like, you know, obviously we could go into more depth and whatnot, but seeing as this video is pushing 20 minutes, I'm going to kind of, you know, talk about these two in a more sped up fashion. But I'm trying to remember. I think the fourth ceremony, yes. The fourth ceremony was the general intention was like the return of my parts, right? So like I began through the awareness of the previous ceremony, seeing these aspects of myself trapped inside of time, whether that be I didn't forgive this person, so part of me is still here, sitting here in resentment, and or like I hurt myself, so like or like somebody hurt me, and so part of me is still holding on, to that kind of thing. And so I saw how like there was dispersed all throughout like time space, like all these chants, and like I needed the chants back in the factory of the chant. It just makes sense. We got to produce love and energy for people to enjoy. We can't be dispersed across the cosmos. We got to be integrated. We can send people out. We can send love, better yet. Learned that this ceremony. We can send love out, but the chants, the aspects of me can all stay inside of me and be integrated whole and be at home. And so like this was like so very wonderful. It was like all of these cute little fairies and balls of light and little energy chants just floating in, and like each one would have their own memories and their own special reason why they weren't connected with me anymore, and why the reason that they were excited to be reconnected with me in that moment, because the newfound availability of self-love and self-acceptance was now resonant in my being. Then that resonance created a space which was then open for them to actually have room to live and to flourish and whatnot. And so like they'd come in, and it was like trying to keep all these tiny little kids quiet inside of you, and we're supposed to be quiet like I mentioned in the previous video. And so it's like shh, little chants, and the chants just think it's so hilarious that we got to be quiet. And so it was an absolute ball. There was one part that was kind of spooky. It was funny. Like my friend Oliver, who's German, he also speaks Slovenian, and so like I was kind of comfortable with his German because I was trying to pick some up from him. Like for instance, autumn, like our season of autumn is their word for breath, so like that's a cool one. There you go, little German. But and so like I was used to that, but he spoke some Slovenian, and like it just threw me off. It just sounded like some like crazy like something I just wasn't familiar with, And so I was like, oh man, like I'm calling in all these parts and shit. Like I just want to make sure I'm only bringing back the chants and nothing like else, And so like I called CC over, and I just asked her to pray, and like she did something so powerful. She didn't say a word. Like she said that she would, and then she didn't like let me hear her prayer. And I feel like that actually amplified the power of it, because it was just like her holding that space. And then like the prayer that she was emanating to me began to flow through my body like a ribbon, and covered all over my entire vessel, and just enveloped it with love and like little tingles and beautiful, like you were just getting wrapped up in a big old fluffy ribbon. Like just wonderful. And so like after that, like I was like good to go, like, and it was just like chants galore. And like it was, they were like, basically what the process was, like chants would come back, and it was depending on their personal comfortability when they wanted to return. I was simply the open vessel, the open space, allowing for them to. But whenever the awareness, because of these other chants, would come in, and they would broaden and expand this love, because when you multiply and you integrate, you're able to create more love. And by creating more love, you can send more love out, and by sending more love out, it generates it multiplies and comes back tenfold. And so when you have 10 times more love, because now you have 10 times more chant, that's now 1,000 times more love, blah, 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 it just grows. And so like the more love that was emanating my being, the more comfortable these lost aspects of myself became with integrating and becoming a part of the chant that you see here now in front of you. And I distinctly remember like the chant from whenever I had gone through some of those like sexually traumatic experiences as a young boy, returning into my being, and like my full-grown man heart was beating in congruence or in harmony with this child's heart. And it was like tears were just streaming, and it was just so beautiful. Like I could feel like his hurt, but also his excitement, and like the zest, and like parts of like my creative potential, which were kind of closed off to me because of this separation of consciousness or soul fractalization that occurred throughout my experience here on Earth. And to be able to have those fractalized parts now returning into my present now consciousness was something that was really opening up new avenues of creative potential. And I've seen that bud forth since that day, of just feeling so much more free. Like if I have something in my mind, I can put it down on paper now. Like I used to have all of these images and all of these fantasies of like creation, like things. Well, I'm still working on designing a dragon. I'll post it whenever I get that one down. Like the ferocious dragon, I haven't quite got him created yet, but I'm working on him. And but majority, I can now manifest these creations into my physical form because of this open availability and wholeness that now is present within me. And so like that was like, I mean, just being able to sit inside of like that piece was like enough for me for the rest of the ceremony. Like, you know, like more chants would come up whenever they were ready. Like I remember I kept doing this thing. It was like, I kind of got it from Terrence McKenna. I think he got it from a movie. So if they're maybe older, you might catch it more from the movie. But McKenna, he would say something along the line. I don't remember what he'd say, but what I'd say was like, boop, calling all chants, boop, calling all chants. And it was like, I don't remember what alien movie he got that from, but I kept doing that throughout the ceremony, and like more and more chants would kind of like arise and integrate and become in tune with me. And it was one of those beautiful things where it's like, I was in like peace. Like it was like, you know, I'd become like, to me, it was like I was awakened, you know. Obviously it's like this continual unfoldment of awakening and, you know, death and rebirth and higher states of awareness. So I was just coming into like this new life, this new birth of this higher state of awareness that I had never been, you know, consciously aware of to that point in my life journey. So that was like marvelous. I remember the next day it was like so much laughter, telling everybody about those experiences and like the factory of chance that lives inside me. And like that's like a philosophy I live by now, you know, like just like knowing that like I am a collage, that's a better word, I had another word, but a collage of, you know, thousands, if not millions, of chants and their different perspectives and their different feelings and their different experiences compiled into one human being. Like to have that awareness is something that I'm infinitely grateful for. And I don't know if I really could have ever got it that clearly and that in depth without the medicine of ayahuasca. And so like that's why I hold such reverence and respect, and why I, you know, talk to and encourage other people to like engage with altered states of consciousness to access deeper states of their personal self, because it can be a really effective sped up tool for things like psychotherapy or just like emotional integration and wholeness and feeling, you know, like, you know, versus like having to kind of do some of the longer treks which are currently set up. But anyways, that's neither here nor there, right? My fifth ceremony was basically just like, you know, encapsulating all of that. It was just sort of like, I think my intention of the night was like, oh God, what was it? Like purify my essence, like fill my heart. I don't remember exactly what it was. Do I have my journal off me? I don't remember if I grabbed it or not. I do not. It's fine. Essentially, I was looking for like, you know, just allowing all the experiences that I had gone through in these last 4, you know, it was like 5-6 days or whatever, but these last like 4 ceremonies to be able to be easily brought back with me and, you know, have a direct understanding of like what I had gone through, and like that pureness of being to just like follow me. And it was like so beautiful. I remember the previous night I was like extending my love because one of my compadres was going through a difficult experience with purging. And so I was extending my love. Now that my chans were being able to generate this energy within my factory, I could send their love rather than send them as individuals. I could just send the love that we generated. And it was in growing and enveloping, and you know, to individual people. But then this beautiful thing happened where it expanded into our whole Maloka space. And basically this like, I don't know, like jungle built tent with about 12, 13 people on beds like inside of it. So it wasn't huge, but like this whole Maloka space was my heart chakra. And I was like, I can love everybody in here. Everybody is in here is surrounded and enveloped within my heart chakra. And then this next night, the 5th ceremony, when I was just sort of like, it was one of those, I mean, it was my birthday, like at the end of the night, like at midnight. So, I mean, it was just like so much fun. Like I was just like talking to myself under my breath, like a lot, just like loving myself, like beyond any regular proportions of human normality, if you will. And so I was sitting there and I was just tapping into that feeling of my heart chakra being this Maloka space. And as I tapped into it more and I thought of all the people that I loved and all the people that I potentially will love on my journey, it just expanded and expanded and expanded and expanded until my heart chakra was the wholeness of the entire earth. And I was told / I knew in that moment that every person that I could potentially come into contact with, and animal and plant, whatever, I have the ability to love them. And it's because I love myself. And by loving myself, I have an infinite field of love that, to me, in my mind, is the earth, is every living being that I can know in this physical chan, is capable of being loved by me because of the love and the work that I did to understand and to engage and to be in love with myself. And like that was, man, tell you what, like I wish everybody could have that feeling. I wish everybody could engage with that state of being, to know that they are loved by themselves, by their soul, wholly, and that because of that, they are capable of loving and engaging each and every experience that comes to them with love. And that's not to say that I'm a perfect being, that because I had this magical journey on some transcendental combination of brew made in the jungle, that I'm like some illumined sage who walks through life with infinite love and bliss just radiating all around me. That's by no means the case. Like, I have struggled in so many ways, since that experience and prior. It's like, that's the beauty of it, because now I have the experience to not see failure as a bad thing, but to see failure as the necessary means that is leading me to the grand success in which I'm guiding myself to.